Good morning, afternoon, and evening for wherever you might be joining us from. Thank you for tuning in today. We have put together about 30-ish minutes worth of material to get us kicked off in the new year. So as Alicia mentioned, I'm Ty Henson and a solution architect with Worksoft, and I'm currently in the St. Louis area, though that's not exactly relevant. But with me today is Viren Daptadar, as mentioned, and he's coming to us from the Dallas area. Our plan today is to have a little fun with the concept of New Year's resolutions, but doing so to show that what we are proposing can be extremely valuable to you and your company. And from the poll question, that was very exciting to hear that there's a healthy amount of automation within the 20 to 50% range. We're proposing as a New Year's resolution that you will be running more, and we can explain. So with that, Happy New Year from Worksoft. Hopefully you did take some inventory in the transition to 2020 to come up with a few things to focus on for the new year. And now that it's late January, it's a perfect time for Viren and I to re-inspire you to keep those resolutions going. You know, my wife and I work out pretty regularly, and it's always a little funny how packed the gym is every year right after the 1st of January. And then by the start of February, we're back to the regular workout crowd. I've heard it estimated that only 80% of resolutions make it into, I'm sorry, less than 20% of resolutions make it into February. But before all is lost, we have a few resolutions that we can help you keep for this new year. And it all starts with running more automation. So as mentioned, it was fantastic to hear that many are underway with that initiative. In fact, running automation this year can help you keep up with each of the other resolutions on this list. For example, when you're running more automation and not having to work through lunch, you can take a little more time and eat a little healthier. Or when you or your team is no longer burdened with tedious, repetitive, time pressure testing because you now have it automated, you can be more relaxed in general. In fact, you can apply next generation automation to tedious, repetitive activities for more than just testing and focus your efforts on higher value activities and get everything done so as to not have to even work the weekends any longer. Not only can you improve the quality of your life in these ways, think of the things that you could accomplish. How would you like to be able to leave work at 5 p.m. on a Tuesday, for example, and have your entire system tested by the time you get back on Wednesday morning? I'll let that sink in just for a second. Or what if you had the need to move some urgent changes into production, yet could test them quickly enough to have complete confidence in that go live? Or for our Agile folks in the audience, how would you like to move automated testing and even regression testing into each sprint cycle? Well, many are achieving these things and so much more with automation. Easy, right? But wait, automation has been around for over 20 years, and yet why aren't we all completely automated with the benefits that I've just mentioned? Well, you're right. The vision of automation from the beginning was to achieve great value in the ways that we have discussed, and yet the true requirements to achieve the needed results have not been met with most automation solutions. And let's not ignore the fact that your company is likely using multiple packaged applications, multiple cloud applications, a few homegrown ones, and possibly even some green screen. The end result of our application landscape looks like a plate of spaghetti. How on earth can we apply automation to this mess? We completely understand because this has been our focus for some time now, and we're still trying to get the word out to everyone that Worksoft is designed for this. Through the years, many products have used programming to provide the base requirements shown above the light blue line in this slide. Sure, these solutions can act like a user, they can be data-driven, and can even make decisions. However, based on this foundation, you have programs testing programs, and in this case, either can be broken. Users found that they could record to build automation rapidly, but keeping it alive was daunting. And from our experience in talking with the market, it has been pretty rare for us to see automation coverage sustained over 20% just because of the effort. Worksoft has been the leader at innovating around and providing a foundation for the requirements necessary to achieve and sustain all of the automation benefits that have been expected for years. And since the beginning of Worksoft, this has been done without the need for programming. Though this in itself is not an exhaustive list, I have included a few key differentiators that are foundational and automatic within the Worksoft platform. For example, Worksoft was created with no programming in mind for a couple of very important reasons. Requiring no programming allows anyone to be involved and yet still understand the documentation and the automation that is created automatically. Without this, collaborating with subject matter experts or end users about automation is nearly impossible. And not to mention that our programming-free framework means we're not testing programs with programs, but rather testing them with a framework that is not changing. We just learn the objects from the applications on the fly and store them in our central database automatically. This allows us to find them and perform the actions just like the manual user used to do. Now, we know that mimicry is the best form of flattery, but beware of testing tools that claim to be next generation, yet lack the foundation to truly provide for the needed requirements. And I wanted to talk this through just a little bit. For example, many have a record feature, but Worksoft has a market-leading visual capture to collect, document, and automate the actions that we witness from the user automatically and more. It can be distributed to a user's workstation, and they can edit and automate while using an application to build documentation and automation. And I should add, it is a capture that truly facilitates automation build. And what I mean by that is we've seen others demonstrate their recorder, quote unquote, just to check that box, but then use 2-generation-old page learning capabilities when building the automation. Keep an eye out for this. Worksoft has the page learn mechanism also, but we rarely use it anymore due to the maturity of our capture feature. Last but not least, Worksoft has market-leading execution performance and scalability. Worksoft is streamlined to allow you to test any number of data variations by attaching them to a single process. Other solutions fundamentally create what we refer to as test sprawl when they create a copy of the automation for every row of test data variation that you need to run. This fundamental efficiency in the design of Worksoft and our intimate level of control of the applications under test allow our execution to be performed quickly and at scale. Coupled with the fact that our execution manager can run massively distributed parallel execution using virtual and cloud resources means that it can scale to any level of automation need or test things quickly in needing to get something urgently into production. There's more, but I've already gotten a little too far into the weeds. Just keep in mind that to truly achieve and sustain your New Year's resolutions that we're talking about, you're going to need Worksoft automation to keep you on track. The bottom line is that Worksoft is truly next generation automation that has been crafted to meet all of the necessary requirements for every company's automation needs. From a recent independent study, Worksoft clients are enjoying a 90% reduction in technology risk, 40% acceleration in projects, and over 50,000 hours in manual savings annually. And these numbers are conservative. For example, some clients run over a person-year equivalent of manual testing. That's over 2,000 hours, and they do it in a 5-hour testing window, and they do it frequently. Some do it daily. You would exceed 50,000 hours in just 25 days if you were doing this. Think of the level of accomplishment there, and if you had to even try to do this manually. It really gets to the point that manual activity and automation is apples to oranges. Worksoft automation can take you to levels of testing and robotic process automation, or RPA, that manual would never get you to, because manual only scales linearly, yet automation can scale exponentially. What I mean by this is that Worksoft automation has multipliers involved for this purpose. For example, Your end-to-end automated process run by Worksoft will run on average 5 times faster than the fastest manual user you have, then can run 24 hours or more than 3 times more within a day, then can run in parallel in the background on any number of additional resources. With this new level of potential, you can automate any tedious, repetitive, data-driven activity, even with decisions involved. You can do more testing than your company ever has, and you can do both attended and unattended robotic process automation to maximize your automation value. The level of value that you can achieve with your automation is only limited by how far you choose to take it. So everyone has a logo slide. We're very proud of our clients that are enjoying the benefits of Worksoft, and yet this is just a snapshot. I like to point out that the largest tech companies in the world have recognized and are also using the value of Worksoft. I know that some people think that Worksoft is just for SAP. This stems from a history where we certainly have had some niche marketing around SAP. The fact is that we're not just for SAP, but we certainly love them as a partner and a customer. Worksoft is a member of the SAP Focused Solutions Circle program and offers some of the deepest integrations and functional testing support for SAP Solution Manager 7.2 test suite in the industry. SAP themselves recently spoke about some of their experience with Worksoft, where they experienced a 95% time savings with the use of Worksoft automation, leading to a 93% cost reduction for 24 test cycles and 21 times faster execution. So just one of many great examples that our clients are experiencing. Another that I wanted to include, just for the purpose of showing even more RPA involved, Honda is another example, and they are doing some of these things that we want to make sure that you're thinking about around RPA. Basically, automation is the commonality of both automated testing and robotic process automation. And I know many analysts do not necessarily agree that one product can bridge the gap between testing and RPA, but Worksoft has witnessed with our clients seamlessly using programming-free automation to assist them with many RPA needs, and they've been doing this for years. Things like data updates and repeatable clerical tasks in both pre-production and production. Worksoft clients are using bots to assist power users in attended modes and many scheduled unattended bots to play a part in an overall business process. Honda has a wonderful story of an RPA process using Worksoft that cobbles together data from various CAD systems to use. There's no time to show it today, but check with us. It represents the Worksoft automation doing a mind-numbing amount of tedious interaction with many systems to do what used to take the user many, many hours to perform, and now can be accomplished in less than 10 minutes. But let's refocus on your New Year's resolutions and how you're going to keep them active for all of 2020. So we said that we want you to run a lot of automation this year, and you've heard that you need the right solution to truly do this, and many large companies are well underway with Worksoft. For each of them, it came down to the innovative platform to assist you and somewhat of a mantra around discover, automate, deploy, and report. So let's break that down. Worksoft has always thrown technology at the pain we see around automation to make automation activities easier and faster. And in each of the areas of discover, automate, deploy, and report, we've innovated to minimize the effort. Discover, which includes capturing, documenting, and building the automation by monitoring a user. Automation itself, true cross-platform end-to-end processes that are, however, easy to maintain without the need for programming, and with modularized parts that can be dragged and dropped and put together like Legos. In deploy, you can run a lot and do it on any schedule or triggered from your DevOps environment. And to scale, this is any need Scale this to any need with background and parallel execution. And finally, report and comply basically is in this category. To document the needs for auditing or compliance needs and pump your metric automation data into any dashboard that you use to monitor your systems. So one last slide before we jump into a live environment and show you a glimpse of some of the capabilities we've been talking about from Worksoft. This visual is to represent a few things to get us started. First, that Worksoft automation has the ability to provide programming-free automation across all of the applications and technologies shown here and more. The swoosh arrow that's kind of hidden in the background represents a single true cross-application end-to-end process that can start in mobile and transcend through anything SAP, anything SaaS, Oracle, Java, .NET, Microsoft Office, green screen, and more. In fact, we've inserted Excel here to represent activities like loading and modifying data that a user may do as part of a business process, and this too can be included in the automation. Other things like sending an email or working with the file system or calling an API with Postman or SOAP UI or performing a database query can also be included. We want the automation to truly perform exactly what the user used to do manually and more. At the top left, we see a small version of our capture window. We're going to show you this live here shortly. That is how most of this would come together expeditiously. In fact, it would likely be more than one user doing their parts and then bringing them together like Legos into an end-to-end. We'll have Viren to help show you this in a moment. And finally, at the lower left, we see a small representation of automatic documentation that is automatically available for any capture or execution of Worksoft automation. So we wanted to set the stage with this visual, but let's jump into a live demo system to take a closer look at what we're talking about. And as mentioned, what I thought we might do is tap into a little bit of Viren's expertise and more recent activity. The whole concept with Worksoft is that it remains readable and collaborative. And so in this particular example, I thought I might have Viren assist us in doing some capture. And I know Viren's been working lately in SuccessFactors. There you go, Viren. So you can steal, and I'll turn it over to you for a moment. And you're basically for us today representing a user that can use the capture and easily provide the information that they're aware of, though they may or may not be involved in testing or RPA in the end.
Yeah, great. Good morning. This is Viren here, and thanks everybody for joining this presentation. Like Ty said, I am going to look at what a user would do when it's actually starting to do the first thing that hinders the automation, that is getting information what the process is. And that's what we start with and make automation easy, which is what we want to work on. And the easy comes with the capture, which you can see here. It does say easy. And what you're just seeing here is a screen where I have SuccessFactors open and I have the application open. So this is a normal URL with the SuccessFactors login. I can start a recording at this point, or I can go to a previous capture which I had done with this and continue my execution of the additional processes that are related to the capture I have already done. So this could be like an end-to-end process that somebody starts in one application, completes, and then they can hand over that to somebody who is working on another application. It could also be in the same system with like in SAP, you can start with one transaction code, go to another transaction code, and maybe it's in a different area, say from sales to finance, and you want the finance person to pick it up. So you could do the part of the sales, and then the invoicing part can be, or the delivery, and then the invoicing part can be done by the finance person. So let me just show you what the application is. And like we say, it's completely free of programming, because the user doesn't need to know any API, any UI, anything. What they need to know is what application they are in. So right now, as you can see, this is in the browser and it's a SaaS application. So what we do is we choose the interfaces that are Capture allows to enable. So you can see all the technologies are represented. SAP has a separate special place. So also Oracle, NetUI. And since this is a web, we have something called as extensible framework to choose. And I have chosen the related framework for success factors. Just to show you, we have various different um, um, features already known from all these SaaS applications. So I'm choosing success factors. So this is all the user has to do. So there is nothing more the user who is doing the capture needs to do. This is all. So I mentioned briefly, there is a page logging ability, and I'll just make a reference to that. So this is the older technology that was used for page logging. And as you can see, there is a red button which enables me to choose what element I need to understand. So it knows all the page and it asks me, do you want to choose this? And I can choose that. But there's a cleaner, more easier way, a faster way, which is the latest technology that we offer. And that is to not even remember there is capture, just start it and then you can actually minimize it. But generally, it's better to remain in both of these windows, the one that is being captured and the capture windows side by side. And so I simply go to the field, I enter the data. I can tap or I can choose mouse and click here. And as you can see on the capture window, uh, you can see a bunch of items that are appearing. And we can take a detailed look at it. So if I select this and I choose what I've captured, is it right? So you can see here, it has captured the username, and it has also found that it's the username. You can go further into details of that, how the actual window looks, what it captured from, and then you can as well look at the step that happened and what key I pressed. I could have pressed a different key, it will choose that as well. It saw that I pressed tab key. So all these details are automatically captured. The user doesn't have to do anything in this advanced capture that we enable, which is one of the key features, because your automation without knowing what the process is to be automated, or the difficult part for automation is to know what is to be captured, what is to be automated exactly. So what you're doing is you're simplifying or making it easy for any person with functional ability, for a super user to know the process, who knows the process, and then do those steps that they want automated as part of the automation. So you can go back and forth with this. So if I want to change anything, I can stop the capture in between, and I can make changes to what is captured. So I could press the stop button and or press the red button again and then make it stop. So at this point, the capture has stopped. I can choose to take a screenshot of the screen that I have landed in. I can add an activity. If it is, I want to open an Excel or something, I can do that. I can add comments. So if I want to add instructions for the automation engineer to do something like I want to save this or make a note of something like the user, the activities, and various things that application you would enrich so that the automation is more robust. You could do that while you are doing the capture. And so it's a good habit to know the process, what you are capturing end to end, and have a clean and very robust capture so that the automation reflects what truly you are trying to automate. So I have actually a part of the capture already done. This is a new feature that we have added. So when we are doing this end to end, you can transfer what has already been captured. So I can just choose this and delete this. And so this is this editing ability, adding and that's a very powerful thing for a lot of things that you can add on top. So if you've finished part of it and you want to add more to it, you can do that. So what I'm going to show is, I can existing capture that I have done partly as part of the transaction. I can go there and open. So when I do, you can see here, I have previously captured steps, which are the navigation, and I'll just navigate here before. I mean, I have these, once I, so it does not depend on how you actually navigate whatever is captured. Once you land onto the location or the screen where you want to capture. So you can see here the recent transactions, and I can go to the location where this capture has ended. And from there, I can start the capture again. You can see here, this is the last one, which is the add employee link. So once I am on that, I can start capture again. And I look at my spreadsheet or a data sheet which has activities that I need to do. So it could be very detailed, which is what I have right now. It's a sheet of information that I look up, and I can go exactly to the details that has been laid out and choose the activities and enter the data as part of doing the capture. So here it is recording based on whatever it's trying to do, what the user is trying to do. So if I choose, and so what happens is it tries to wait for what I'm trying to do. So you can see here now it appears, since I have clicked something different, it is now showing what is part of the capture. As I continue, it continues the capture. And it records everything that the user is doing, like I said, and as it proceeds, it continues this capture. And so I'll just enter a few fields here, and then I'll show you what we can do with that capture. And so the national ID. So you can see here based on the activities, you can see it's populating on the right side, and it's now built up a process where I can save as a draft, which is completing part of the process. And I end the transaction. So I can proceed with this, or someone else can proceed with adding more stuff to it, whether it's pay data or composition data or a job info. If there is another person going to do that, they can continue with the recording. So I'll just stop here. And I can save that into a different file. Yeah, Windows doesn't like the colon there. And so after saving this, like Ty mentioned, there is analyze and capture. So the analyze portion is where you upload the captured data and then you create documentation for it. So this is the analyze. What I can do is go to analyze and upload the one that we just finished and go back to the captures that were done. So you can see here, this is the one that we finished. And if we go and look at what was captured, it shows all the things that were laid out and done or entered as part of the capture. And with this, you can as well create documentation. So I can go here and say, create documentation. And I'll use the default template. Just use a default template and create PDF. I can create Word as well. So if you intend to add or make changes to your documentation for user training, for the training for anybody looking at that application, you can have that created and you can make changes to it so that you can further enhance it. Yep. And this is a very high fidelity and a rich output. So it's a very useful output for any user training, as you can see here once on this. So it actually records everything that a user might need to understand and process any transaction or any application. So it has details, and as you can see, if I had put some comments or notes, this writes those as part of this output. So any instructions, any help for the user is recorded as part of this. This is an extremely useful feature, and there is a similar one where when the tests are run, you have a test result, which is you can get similar outputs for the test results that have been finished. So you can compare what the user documentation was and when the tests are finished, those two, and you can have, in a sense, if you have any validations before moving your changes to the next landscape, you can use these as a validation once the test results are there. So your test results can come as high as this. The information on this also can be used for that. So there's a test results output also, which is pretty comparable.
Viren, that's excellent. I want to make sure to keep us on schedule. So if you don't mind, could you make me host? And then I'd like to show another capture and then just take it a little bit further. I'll go ahead and show the Harmony view as a part of the one that I bring in.
Sure. Yes, we have a lot to show, but we'll have less time, so sure.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. And so now everyone should be seeing Worksoft as part of my background. Now, the beauty of using a couple of personalities involved today is that we're going to use the same platform, yet it will come across slightly differently. So think of me now as a user that knows a process extremely well, but knows nothing about automation. Viren was able to show us the ability to do some very powerful things as a part of the capture. And yet a user need only really know how to turn on this big red button and turn it off and save their content, which will bring it into our central repository. Yet all of the same things that Viren experienced. So Viren may have been more like an IT or a QA person turning on capture and needing to build automation for either testing or for RPA. In my case, again, I'm a user. All I really know is the process. So this little capture application was distributed to me. I was given a few minutes of training on how to use it, and I'm well aware that I need to turn it on and then do my process. And in the simple form of the use in this way, basically, the concept is that the automation product never demands how the application is used. The concept is that the user knows the process and will simply perform that the same way that they would do in production in performing these things live. And like what Viren was experiencing, basically, we're automatically documenting the step-by-step results of what that user is performing so that they're well aware of what's being collected. But again, there's no need for them to drill deeper or do anything if they need to, even though those editing capabilities are available. Again, the user just needs to know how to perform their activity and provide that to us by capturing it. Now, in reality, some of those features are trained, and with a brief amount of training, like what Viren was explaining, the user knowing where this is going can augment or provide some additional value. And so, like Viren explained, he could insert comments. I might insert a comment here to say, use the order for the delivery, and that goes now into the results. It becomes a step. The narratives above it were created automatically through my activity, but now I have the ability to augment with narrative of my own. And the screenshot, like Viren mentioned, I can insert one into mine. And this is the ability for that user to say, when this runs in automated form, we want to take a screenshot right here, regardless of whatever other automatic imagery is being collected. We know at this point in time, we need this evidence of a screen capture. But probably the most important, and this is what Viren was getting to, is this fingerprint. And from the perspective of me being the basic user and knowing the process, and yet providing that testing, being a business user, providing that testing, there is ultimately things that I would visually validate on the screen. And so by clicking that, and like what Viren was showing, we see every object on the screen, and by simply hovering over it and clicking on it, that will insert a step. So in this case, let's say hypothetically, I need to verify that the total weight is 0 after I've saved my order. And simply by clicking the fingerprint and clicking on that field, the user has the ability to insert the verifications that they historically would have done very visually. Now, the other thing too is Viren showed some of the configuration. I'm set to auto configure. So everything that I do, it's just automatically recognizing, and it's going to follow me across the boundary, even here, of using different applications. So as I go into the GUI, from the Fiori screen, this is, I should have mentioned, placing an order, and now I'll do the delivery. We are going to continue to collect those steps along the way. And let me just put in some data, and then I'll get mine wrapped up, because this is the boring part. This is us being the user, but the important message really is to understand that this can be distributed, and those users can provide great value through just knowing the process. So I'm also configured. Viren showed the ability for us to store that as a file. I can also send this directly into that central repository. I'm going to call mine simple order, and with a click of the button and entering my credentials, it's on its way. So now as the user, I'm done. And like Viren was showing, I can proceed now to do a new capture. I could give, give that a name. Empty my screen, and I'm ready to do a new capture. Or I can park this, and later on, light it up again and do captures. We have clients that are having users do captures in production environments by just doing their normal work. And the beauty of that is those users are not going out of their way to document or automate anything. They're just doing their jobs. And we're collecting that fantastic information in the form of both documentation and automation automatically through capture. Okay, so not only is Viren's stuff in here in our central repository, my simple order, and I'll kind of do what Viren was showing is if we click on it, we begin to see some of the steps, some of the data, and we're starting to peel that apart so that we can easily drive these processes with alternate sets of data. I'll show you a quick example of that in just a moment. But just as important, the documentation, mine is configured to automatically create a PDF of everything that I capture. And that's what we do with our key users as well. So not only are they providing the information, you're getting a functional visual of the activities that they've gone through. This is kind of showing us the modularity that is automatically happening, and that's just configurable within our product. And then starting by, in my case, I pretty much just clicked the red button and then turned it off and saved. I inserted a screenshot and a comment, but all of this imagery that's involved is automatic. So when you turn on capture, we capture the screen. Then as the user performs activities, we collect the object images as well as the narrative that we're building to explain exactly what is happening along the way. So here I left click the execute button to get my order started. The screen changed, so we took a screenshot, and then I began to put in the order information, and all of that is collected. So no longer does a user have to sit down and write a dissertation or take screenshots and paste them into Word or Excel and then provide that to a programmer to get something automated. When I mentioned that Worksoft throws technology at pain, the pain was the time and effort involved of making that happen in the past, and now we're doing it automatically with technology such as what we're witnessing here. Now, the other thing that I talked about quickly in stealing back from Viren is the what I referred to as the harmony view, and I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse. Is the real value of capture above and beyond what you've witnessed is in the aggregate of capture. When you begin to have key users capturing activities in various areas, you can create what we refer to as collections. And I can store collections based on parts of the business, based on parts of an application, or even a sprint cycle, for example. So I could put together, these are the things that we've just captured for this sprint cycle. Let's send them over for automation, which we'll take a look at in just a second, and use them. But along the way, we can also begin to visualize that high level functional flow of what's happening, and even get into some analysis around, okay, well, the real important part in many of these screens are the inputs. And so where are the users doing inputs when in fact two users did an order? What's the difference between them and what's going on here? So I'm not going to drill into the weeds very far here, but I wanted to explain that the whole concept behind this part of central collection of these captures is to provide value in the data that is brought together even before we begin to leverage them in other ways. So one simple way to think of it is by doing a capture, you get three things, very valuable things automatically. One is that you get a functional visual of what the user has performed. The other is, the second is that you get automatic documentation, which we've already looked at in a couple of different ways, from the one that Viren did and the one that I did, even though we're playing different roles along the way. And the third is the step-by-step automation. So let's go over and take a look at what I'm referring to here. And so without too much explanation, I've come into the area where my captures go, and I have authoring rights to do edits. And so the simple order, when we begin to view it in automation form, what was horizontally displayed, the functional visual that I was referring to, is now vertically within this tree view. And let's go straight to the heart of our product, which is this. These are the steps that will reperform those actions. And so nobody loses sleep at night. I want to explain just enough to make it clear how we're doing this. There is no programming layer involved. Basically, when the user uses our capture, we learn the object that they interacted with, and we witness the action. And then we basically set up a step working with that exact same object doing that exact same actions. And then we filled the action list with other things that you might need to change it to do in the future. And as a result of all of that, we then create an English narrative to explain what's going on. A little bit more on this object though too, because it goes to the sustainability that I was subtly injecting earlier. And that is, when we learn this object, we bring it into our central repository, and we only learn every object once. So if two users go through similar screens and use the same object, we recognize that and we link that object into everywhere that it's being used. That means that if it ever changes, we change it once and that change automatically propagates. That's the same goes for the modularization of these steps. I mentioned that I was configured to automatically break out the steps that I perform based on the windows that I'm going through. And then for SAP GUI, it's often that we configure to do this at the transaction level, because that becomes a very shareable level. But where I'm going with this is, let me show you a quick example. I did not capture my login for either Fiori or GUI. I had that set up and ready to go. So if I come here, and I can use our very powerful search mechanism to search for my Fiori logon. Let me just look at my chain of events here, and I'm going to take this logon process that already exists. It was already captured in the past, and it's set up. It's often something that we do share for various users. We'll design the login to log in as the user that's using the platform, and also to set some initial values as needed. So I can set up with my Fiori login, I can do my SAP HANA GUI logon, find that guy and drag him into place. And in fact, it goes well beyond the login. So for example, the next step in the chain of events here would be doing the delivery. I could begin to search for that. Actually, one example I think I want to use today, Viren was kind enough recently to work on some vendor creation. And so to help plant the seed around using automation to assist you with your data needs, and we'll talk more about that in just a second, I can find Viren's process here, and I can drag that right in. And so what I'm now showing is the ability to treat these modular processes that you or others have written like Legos and literally drag and drop them together to construct end-to-end scenarios. Now, they do have to make sense. The steps involved do have to make sense, and there's best practices around making that easy to do. For example, the vendor master creation is designed to log in and do its job and log out. So regardless of whatever system I might be hitting, it's designed very modularly to do this job. And so I've just dragged it in as an example of how you could use automation to create a vendor and then proceed to use that vendor in various other end-to-end scenarios. I just wanted to pick on that one because I was familiar with Viren's work recently. And so I've dragged that in. But now let's take a look here. I'm just going to click on run and start. And I dragged in the logins that I needed for my capture. The XK01 that does the vendor was already configured with a login. So it's logging in and will do its job first and then log out. And basically, you can see we're driving this GUI quite rapidly. We talked about the speed of execution and the intimate knowledge that we have about interacting both with the GUI and with the web, even for extremely large, complex applications like Fiori. We get great performance in regards to replaying these actions. And so we talked about being 5 times faster than the fastest user, but then there's other multipliers like the ability to do this 24/7 and use parallel execution to accomplish a lot in a very short amount of time. So these were the steps that were captured and brought in. I dragged in the logins and I dragged in a a vendor creation as just an example. One more thing about data, but I want to then step this up a little bit into a slightly larger end-to-end example. So let me go ahead and just clean up my desktop. And hopefully I'm not moving too quickly to be confusing. But last but not least on the data realm, I just wanted to show you when you do a capture, the data that the data that the user used does get captured, and we get, with a simple right-click operation, we can easily turn that into what we refer to as a record set. And this data then becomes parameterized. So now it's using a variable to fill in those values, and it's created this table using what was my static data. And this is my opportunity now to go in and type in other data variations that I want to test, but you can just as easily import or export those, even with automation, from things like Excel or other databases, for example. So I just wanted to really drive home the fact that data variations themselves become another multiplier, and we make that very easy to work with. Now, where I also wanted to go here, let me go ahead and save this, is to show you an example of more of an end-to-end. And we'll go ahead and run this one on my workstation, and then we'll talk about taking that to scale. But this particular end-to-end has some other things in it. I've got a Postman zip code API lookup. Let's include that. I've got a couple different versions of Salesforce and Salesforce Lightning. We'll do both of those. So this one is going to generate a random person, go into both Salesforce versions and create an opportunity, and then do like what we did, working with the order in Fiori, the delivery through billing in the GUI, and then doing the fulfillment in a green screen using a Rumba emulator. And so we mentioned on that swoosh slide that um, a green screen can be involved as well as mobile and other things, but let's use this as our example. And this will only generally take about 90 seconds. Enoch Sebastian is the random individual that we've created. We're querying a baby names database there and choosing a random first and last name and putting that together to then use as the name within our opportunity. We're also, just for demonstration purposes, using IE for the classic Salesforce, and then there will be other browsers involved just to show our capabilities there. And I don't think we've mentioned, but I will throw this on the table, that we are agnostic to the browser and typically the environment that you're working within. So that's why you can capture content from a production user and then use that in another environment. And as we've witnessed, you can easily modify the data that's being used for that purpose. Or I could capture things in one browser and then use that in another browser accordingly. And that's our ability to be agnostic to the environment and to the application UIs that are involved. This is the Salesforce Lightning, closing down, now heading into Fiori. We saw a quick example of this one earlier. And I should mention, I'm running this one also because it does contain an error, and I wanted to show you what that looks like. Because if I run everything and everything works perfectly, of course we love when that's the case, because then there's nothing more to do. We know that the changes that we're testing have worked, or the RPA process that it's performing worked beautifully. But when we are testing and we run a lot at night and we come in for our morning, basically the only thing we'll need to concern ourselves is with any problems that have happened. So this one is getting close to the end. It's now getting back into the GUI to do the delivery and billing. And if you blink, you're almost going to miss it. Once it gets into Roomba here, it drills down and uses the order number and the delivery number from the ERP system to do the fulfillment, and then closes out of that emulator back to the GUI for a screenshot of the document flow, and now it's done. But this was a single process, and yet you can see we've collected all of the detail, the narratives explaining everything, and automatically took a screenshot of something that failed, which was us verifying that the processing status is equal to correct, and it's not. So that was automatically collected, the timing, the data, everything involved. Last but not least, and then we'll get things closed out here, but this ran on my workstation, and basically part of our solution is all about taking this to scale, and we do this better than anyone in the industry at the moment, basically. So I wanted to just give you a quick glimpse of the ability for us to set up virtual resources. These could be in the cloud. I've got a couple here that are RDP servers. I can run multiple sessions on each one of them, actually 3 per, so I could run 6 things all at the same time. And we can schedule these things to run, or I can run them immediately, or I can trigger them from my DevOps realm. I don't have time to show you that today, but I'm just going to kick off a little lights out test that we run. Has about 9 processes in it that we run regularly. On the home page, there's going to be a little dashboard saying that it's running. And I did lower my resolution so things would be nice and big, but you can see I've got those processes all now executing on the resources that we were just looking at, New Mexico and London, and on various sessions within there. So if I bounce over, we spy on active sessions, and that's because these are things that we can't necessarily reach out and touch. So each one of the sessions involved on London and on New Mexico is now going to be busy performing automation. And every few seconds, we're going to take a desktop screen capture of those sessions. I'm going to try to capture a few here so we can see. Some of them are getting kicked in here. But that allows us to have an understanding of what's running. But the concept here is that that's all running in the background. This could be overnight. This could be during the day. It doesn't matter when. It's just not having to happen on my workstation, so I can remain productive. All right, so I brought that together pretty quickly, but I wanted to show some of the features that were involved in doing what we do as a company. Basically, keep in mind that our automation is going to allow you to discover what needs to be automated, whether that's for testing and or for RPA, to implement that for testing and do any number of validations and really take testing to scale, but also take RPA to scale in assisting us with our regular business. So for the resolutions that you have for 2020 about relaxing more, eating a little healthier, it's going to all depend on your ability to run automation much more than you ever have.